Hi, and welcome to the meeting of the Transparency Exchange Working Group. I think we already warned about this meeting being recorded and published on YouTube. We have no newcomers, so let's move on in the agenda. Do you have any new info, Steve, from TC54?
I do have a possible update. I met with Samina Hussein and her name is Aki. She's heavily involved in TC39, which is JavaScript. And we are working on a better way to produce PDFs of ECMA standards without having to use Microsoft Word as a intermediary format. There were some
Yoo-hoo!
challenges. Yes, there were a lot of challenges when we were producing the CycloneDX 1.6 specification, and the templates were provided to us by ECMA in Microsoft Word format. However, Microsoft's interpretation of OpenXML varies from the standard that they produced, which also makes products like LibreOffice, who actually conform to the standard, incompatible in some cases to Microsoft Word documents. So it wasn't very inclusive. We had to produce the PDFs anyway for all of our folks that wanted to review the standard on Linux systems. So this new approach that we're doing completely eliminates the need for Microsoft Word. We have a lot of POCing to do. And the great news is that the folks over at TC39, Aki specifically, she's willing to help. So they've already been down
Nice.
that road. They've already figured it out. They've got some homegrown tools that's very specific to them. However, there's a lot of tribal knowledge that they're willing to share with us to kind of make us successful, help us be successful. So we're going to, I'm going to choose package URL as a starting point because that specification is 90% already there, right?
Yeah.
And it's much smaller than CycloneDX. So it's for a POC, it's going to be useful. So I'm going to go forward with that and try to use this new process, and we'll see what happens. So if that works, then it would be then applicable to both VERS. It would be applicable to the work that we're doing here, because ultimately, we might produce an open API specification. However, in order to have a standard, you actually need a human readable document. So, which
Oh, yeah.
is kind of what we're
They're
at.
going to be human readable implementation guides and other things.
Right.
And we may want to include the Open API in that just to have it published.
Yep. So that's the
Okay.
only update that I have on my end. I also have to submit a chairs update by I think the end of this month for all the work that we've kind of been doing in the last 6 months.
Yeah. Great. Directma. Right. Yeah. Koala. I haven't done much there. I think you and I, Steve, need to have a separate meeting and discuss the details surrounding that. But I think there is a lot of interest in what we're doing. I have a meeting coming up with SPDX. They want to know. Been having regular meetings with Skit. So I think it would be good to have it before Christmas.
Yeah, we could potentially do one this year. We could also potentially align one next year with OWASP Global AppSec EU.
Oh, yeah.
So that would also
And that would be a
likely
good
be advisable.
time, if not before, for a hackathon.
Yeah.
we should have enough then.
Well, the
Okay,
idea is to
other
do-
events.
Sorry, the idea is to do it remotely, right? A virtual event. That is the consensus, right? For the
KoalaCon
KoalaCon.
is
Yes.
a virtual event over
Yeah.
Zoom. It's just a webinar, really.
Right.
But the goal is to reach out to everyone that creates SBOM platform, either SBOM production or SBOM consummation, and make them aware of what's happening. We already had some discussion on the Slack channel about FOSSA's implementation, and there are many people that do really good software platforms, but there's no standard, and that makes it really hard. We need this interoperability.
Agreed.
So we need to reach out and do that. SBOMarama, one reason why I have to probably cut this meeting short, I'm having a short presentation there, 10 minutes. Just a short, brief version that I showed you before. Basically saying that they have to join us if they want to be part of the action. But I'm very happy that we got invited by Alan Friedman to take part of that. Dimitri, hi Jotam, welcome. Dimitri isn't here. He said something about the working group in CISA. Are you aware of this working group, Victor?
I am aware of the group. I have not been involved with the group. I'm looking forward to the presentation today, though, at SBOMarama. I believe they have a 10-minute slot as well. But I'm not sure. I haven't been involved. I think Ricard is another one that's involved with that, but he's part of my working group as well. But yeah, I want to learn more about that, to be honest. I just haven't had bandwidth to engage with it.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
I know they produced a sharing document earlier this year, and I believe some of the I believe some of the roles that they defined do align, not one-to-one, obviously, but they are compatible with a lot of the work that we're doing here. So, but other than that one document, I really haven't seen much from that group. So I'm not sure if it's still active or not.
So to the best of my knowledge, the original kind of working group initiatives was now replaced by something called Tiger Teams. So I think a lot of the people that have been involved with the sharing, like their artifact that they produced is indeed the sharing document. And now I think the relevant Tiger team is called operationalizing SBOMs or BOM ops or something, which I think a lot of the people that were involved in the sharing group have now transitioned into. That's at least to the best of my knowledge.
I think those are two different things, actually. Let me check the agenda for today, because I think those are two different Tiger groups. Maybe I'm wrong. I believe those are two different. BOM ops is what we should do with all these, and it's on the agenda for today. But yeah, okay, maybe they are the same, actually. Never mind. Okay, strike what I said. They might actually be the same. I was under the impression that they were two separate Tiger teams, but I'm probably wrong about that.
I put a link to the SBOM sharing primer document in the Slack channel.
Okay, great. ITF Skit, we have ongoing discussions there. We're discussing digital signatures and also very openly, in order to understand each other, how to integrate, especially surrounding transparency logs. They have a lot of cool work going on. I don't know where they are in the ITF process, but I occupied a few of their community meetings since they didn't have an agenda. So that we have a relationship with them. With SPDX, I emailed Karen and names, Graham?
Greg or
Greg. Thank you. And we're
Gary, sorry.
Gary, yeah,
Gary O'Neill.
we're planning a meeting in mid-October to discuss if we can present at a SPDX community meeting. And I think that fits rather well. We should have a bit more progress by then. Okay. Any other events we should be aware of or try to get inside? No? Okay. Then moving on. We haven't got Pavel here, so we haven't got the open API specs. I was bored by a bad TV show the other night, so I tried to summarize the status of our work and possibly create a roadmap. So I created this. I also got a question from Chris on Slack. So I try to divide our work into generic areas, the consumer part of the API and the publisher part of the API. This is just a proposal, so let's discuss this. I think that discovery is stable since we have some time. I can show you a bit of the code I did to play around with URNs and URIs. In the TI model. Object model, I think we're doing fine. I started coding a bit, starting from the wrong end. I started with T collections. I think I published a link. I can show you some of the work there. But we've been discussing this quite a lot, and I think the model we have works well. Use cases, that's of course a living document, but I think we have a very good list. Hi, Chris.
Hello, sorry I'm late. It's early here for me.
Yeah, it's not for me. Okay, you added yourself. Thank you. Now, I start to discuss, I think I sent you this picture, didn't I?
Yep.
Yep. Not as colorful back then. On the consumer side, we have an idea of an open API spec from Pavel. It doesn't align with object models, so we need to do that. But at least we have a first version to work with. When we have something closer, I want to integrate that into our repository, so we have everything in one place, and he has agreed to that. Security architecture and authentication. We have some slides in this slide deck, but we haven't really published any documents. So we need to do that. On the publisher side, I don't think we have discussed much the flow of how to publish. I think that would be interesting, but we have a few requirements in the bug tracker, like one artifact needs to be, you need to be able to apply it to multiple collections and that kind of issues. That will affect the spec.
I'm happy to deep dive with that, Ola, if you want, because I've spent a bit of time thinking about that in our work. So I'm happy to brainstorm with you on that. Sweet. If you want some more
Sweet. Capacity. I would like to write down just a brainstorm flow saying this is how we can do it. We start with creating a product. If we have a product, we create a leaf. If we have a leaf, we create a basic collection data, and then we start adding artifacts. And how do we refer when we add an artifact? How do we refer to the list of leaves that and collections? Yeah,
because I mean we're literally doing this right now, but we have slightly different terminology, but we've solved kind of this in Spotify, but with different terminology. But I'd like to make it compatible.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can probably find some time next week or otherwise.
Let's do one-on-one. Let's speak on Slack later. I'll share my calendar with you. We can speak.
Yeah, we can brainstorm. But have I forgotten anything important here? Or, I mean, of course, we need to publish at some point, start the formal ECMA work and formalize, but we need to write the basics first.
I just have a question. Is there any meaning to the different colors that were used?
For the colors, yeah, I said the purple ones are not really touched. The green ones, we started some work. We have some ideas, and the blue ones we definitely have in documents in GitHub.
Okay, all right.
But if you look into GitHub, we have nothing on the publisher side.
I would say just kudos to whoever came up with the DNS structure, because I thought that was pretty clever, actually, the discovery part.
Cool. We did it in the group. So, I mean, going back to the object model, I think you've seen the pictures. Do you have any new thoughts or ideas, or are we still happy with what we have here?
Yeah, I think last time we discussed, I think the need to have like a sequence diagram. So, I mean, this is really high level. And I don't want to go down the low level, but if we're at 10,000 feet today, I'd like to get us to that 1,000 foot tomorrow. So, and I think that would involve the sequence diagrams, just so we can kind of review and confirm whether or not this is in fact actually going to work.
Yep.
The way we think it's going to.
Yep.
One other thing that we talked about last week, and I'm not certain we landed on anything last week, and I don't see it being documented, which was we were talking about versioning. And where did we land on that? What is the versions? The versions are software versions, or what versioning system or schema are we going to use? Major, minor, patch? I mean,
we had actually two discussions. We didn't, as I remember, we didn't really do, let's see if I have that here, that whole presentation. We didn't really discuss versioning of software, if that's what you're after. We discussed versioning of T collections, where I had an idea that we should have fixed collections with signatures, and we decided in the group that that would be very complex for the software. So
yeah, but then we went on. Go ahead.
Can I chime in on the versioning? I think it's going to have to be implementation specific, because I think it's going to be hard to systemize, say, Thember. That works great for some use cases, but it wouldn't work great for something like, I don't know, a SaaS service or a backend where you might do rolling releases and you might deploy 15 times per day, right? There you probably want to have some kind of build number instead, or git hash and build number or something along those lines. So I don't think Sember is a good way to standardize, and we spend a lot of cycles.
No, if we're talking about the version number of a software, I agree there that we can't decide how all the producers should version number. And it is a mess, and it's not our task to sort it out. But
and Steve came up with arguably the worst of all. They have like city names or something that they use at ServiceNow, or what is it you're using? NGC numbers or something equally obtuse. You know,
no, we use city names, and that's in our documentation and everything else. Yes.
So basically, what's in a tea leaf index is instead of version 1, 2, and 3, what we have is strings. In other words, there.
Yeah, it's strings, but we may need. I realized yesterday that I haven't really sorted up the product index and leaf index in GitHub. I have to do that. It's a rather simple operation, but I'll produce some pull requests. But we want a publication date or something so we can sort them and have a current one and a previous one and a previous one, right? Because we want some sort of pagination here, so customers can roll back or search.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to get to next, right? Because if you do rolling releases and you do Git hashes without the date stamp or timestamp on that, you can't really sort it. So
No.
maybe having a timestamp is a better version.
So if we brainstorm, say, okay, for a leaf, what should we have here? String, no syntax required. No, I just
But if you
copied
have,
here. So.
but over here you have the release date, right? Which is presumably timestamp of the generation. So whatever you call the version, you can still derive which is the latest.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. I mean, you can have multiple major versions of a commercial product both being supported, and a previous major version may have had an update while the current major version has not. That happens all the time. I mean, the timestamp can be used in combination with the version to determine which is later.
But okay, but you're saying that there's something major that have minor updates, right? Well, I'm trying to avoid Semver
like my
something.
employer.
But should
like my
we
employer,
try
we use
to
Semver
enumerate that? Yeah.
Like my employer, we use we support N-2, so we support basically two different versions, different major versions of the platform at any given time. And there are exceptions to that, and sometimes we support 3 or 4 major versions. But policy wise, we support 2. But that means that we can have older versions with newer minors.
But in that case, Steve, wouldn't the leaf be like the major release, so that when you bake a new version, new N, you create a new leaf rather than
but we still
tracking
need
them within
to
the same leaf.
relate them for pagination and so on, right? So,
do you treat them as different objects? Each release branch is a different object.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that the major version and we have major Y, and then we release here minor Z. And this doesn't have to be, as Steve said, I mean, time-wise, they could be all over the place here.
Right.
Mixed.
And, in some cases, it may not necessarily even be a minor version, right? Because again, not everyone uses semantic versioning or anything even remotely close to that. So in some organizations, my employer just happens to be one of them, but there are many other commercial software vendors that do similar things, is that you might have like major X, but then patch 1, patch 2, hotfix 3. you know, that
Yeah.
sort of thing. And no minors are actually involved.
So which is more
should-
important, major or minor or release date? What's the hierarchy there?
I mean,
It
the mayor here definitely, I did this wrong. Okay, let's fix this. So the first release is that. And second is that. So, I mean, all versions have a minor, right? But the interesting thing here is if we take this only in a time scale fashion, there will be Mayor Y will suddenly come on top of Mayor X, even though Mayor X is the new one.
Would it make sense to have like a concept of like a family in the leaf to group these?
Or is it simply different TIs, right? Different products.
Yeah. Yeah.
That could be. So that then we haven't got the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
That would simplify things.
Since we have a product index, you could actually have.
So you do like version 1 is being one, and then version 2 being the next one, and then you track them in within each leaf.
Yeah, so
sorry,
this
yeah.
one points to a whole different leaf index.
That may make sense. Keep in mind that, you know, not every software company uses versions, right? Like Facebook. I know Facebook is probably a bad example because they don't really have any kind of enterprise software, but they have a big mono repo. It's like a couple terabytes.
They
And
probably have hashes, right?
they don't version, right?
No.
They don't do that. And it eliminates a lot of problems, causes some, but it eliminates a lot of problems for them at scale. And I know other organizations also kind of do the same thing. They just don't have versions because they push to production 50 times a day or, you know, whatever.
But for that case,
So-
you could have one with just a git hash being the version and timestamp being when it's generated, right?
Right, and release date.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, they may or may not be the same. That's fair.
So would this be a good opportunity to support, and I don't know the answer, but would this be an opportunity to also support maybe Gitoids as part of the version? I
You
don't
mean
know
a,
the answer to that.
you
Can
mean
you,
a sense of like release
Expand on that.
version?
Gitoids are basically a it is currently it's worked on primarily by some folks in the in LF. However, they've been talking with us as well in TC54. It's basically a way to uniquely identify an artifact. And there is a I don't want to say desire. They are interested in exploring the possibility of making Gitoids an international standard.
How is that different
it is-
than a cryptographic hash like a SHA-1 or SHA-256? I mean, which is what you have right now. Get hashes or SHA-1s. So
right. This is a little bit different. It's basically kind of a graph. So I'm not going to go into the details on that. I would highly encourage you to check out some of their meetings, though. It is kind of interesting. But there's a possibility of possibly using that for anything that has an artifact. Now, not all software has artifacts, right? So we can't use it for everything, but it could be another thing that we support to help us uniquely identify a product version.
Yeah, we
Ah.
shouldn't definitely block it. I mean, right now the product version, we say just a string, whatever you want that you think is a version for you, right? But
So
we
it is,
do need a timestamp in order to paginate and have a proper.
So
Yeah.
it's either a full SHA-1 or a partial SHA-1 is what a GitOid is.
But it also says that it's currently most common hash is SHA-1, but there is some effort to transition to SHA-256. So I was
Cool.
looking at Ayana page.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm on. Something here.
Yeah, I don't know if Git is doing that, but I mean, in the IETF, if you start speaking about SHA-1, that's another thing.
Yeah, sorry, they actually changed their name a while back. I don't know why GitOid came to my mind. It's also it's currently known as Omnivore. We added support.
Oh, Omnivore.
Yeah, we added support in CycloneDX 1.6 for Omnivore because they seem to be making a lot of progress lately, and some of the CISA documents, requests for feedback, mentioned Omnivore as one possible identifier that the NVD could theoretically use in the future.
Yep.
Oh, good God, it's a dependency graph.
Yeah.
Okay. But the leaf index we separated, that's good for major versions. Happy with that. And I think we have enough here, but we can't.
I guess, sorry, this might be an edge case, but Steve, you probably have a lot more experience around enterprise software than I do, but would you possibly ship or maintain multiple versions that may or may not be latest? Like even within a major version, would you have, I don't know, version 5 and then provide a patch on something that isn't latest? I guess in somewhere you wouldn't do that, I guess. I'm just thinking of like 5.4.1 being released after 5.4.1, like a hotfix. I'm just thinking that if that is necessary scenario to support, you know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, we support all of that.
If we went down the path of SemWare, we would have problem with Debian packages that add -1, -2. So I think having just a text string is gonna solve our problems, and then manufacturers need to sort out their problems. But having a timestamp is important. Do we need some sort of indication on the status of this? I think some people release, especially open source, RCs, beta releases, release candidates, other things. And vendors may want that as well.
If we think this is important, I wouldn't get down to actual nouns. I would just make it a Boolean. Is this a pre-release or not? Because different companies are going to call it different things, and they're going to have different meanings based on who's calling it that. Is it pre-release or not?
That's a good idea. Then you can just append that to your version string, RC1 to your version, right? In conjunction with that.
Yeah.
Do we
That's
need
what
a
Maven
pre-release?
does.
I mean, I'm thinking of our use cases. What's the use case for a pre-release? It'd be internal only, obviously.
Well, we had a question from, wasn't it that man Gates, Christopher Gates? if we could use the API for discovering new releases.
Sure.
And you definitely want to know if there's a new release that isn't meant for production, you want to avoid it or put it in your lab, right?
Well, I don't know who that person is. I'm just thinking in terms of what we're using this for, to distribute artifacts
Yep.
that are relative to it. Who are we distributing to? I would think that would be the end consumers, the end users.
And
But
resellers, others.
right,
Yeah.
right. There's a whole tree of end users. Yeah.
Yep.
So why would they want to know about a pre-release? That would only be internal.
Depends. And open source, I mean, Asterisk release candidates all the time for testing, and
That's true. Okay.
They create packages for it and so on. And
okay.
I would like to see what's in there to prepare, but also want to get a notice that is milder than upgrade now.
Got it. Okay. I wasn't thinking open source. I was thinking commercial. Sorry.
Yep. Okay. We have a discussion elsewhere about standardizing, or what do we call it? The life cycle enumeration. Yeah. Products. Now, we have a product here, right, that could apply a life cycle enumeration. But how do we say that this version is bad, has a security hole, we won't fix, upgrade to the next one? Without having to go down and find it in the VEX file down here.
Isn't that implied that you won't necessarily patch a previous version, you bump a new version, right?
Yeah, but is that something that could be conveyed here, saying that you're running a version that's no longer supported
Well, you could have
and recommended?
Could you just have, I mean, couldn't you just have booleans that says latest? That just bump automatically. And if it's not latest, you can assume that it's not patched.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend trying to overload what we can do in the index with what is
Okay.
already going to be achievable in the different types of artifacts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally
So
agree.
that goes here.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
As long as we're in agreement.
I think that's a general statement that I would kind of aim for. Like if there's a standard that has certain metadata that applies to a product, and we can support that standard, just in terms of interoperability as an artifact, I think we should opt for that.
Yeah, no,
No,
keep
it's
in
a
mind,
question of API efficiency as well. Because
keep in mind we will have the insights part as well. And insights will allow us to query the artifacts for that kind of data, should we want it, in a format, SBOM or VEX agnostic way, format agnostic way. So that part of the API we haven't even dove into yet. But I wouldn't want to overload the index, because all that stuff, all those types of questions will be easily answerable once we start designing insights.
Maybe having an EOL boolean or something along those lines would make sense for a release, though, or some kind of life cycle. Right? If it's an EOL boolean or just like EOL as a timestamp, it might make sense on that level. In particular, in the case where you have multiple versions of the same piece of software, right? You may say version 5 is supported for another 1 year, and then it's EOL.
But then why only end of life and not end of support or end of security update?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a long list of states that
down the rabbit hole we go.
We've done that in the other group, so let's keep it in the other group for now and wait for the output. No, it's an interesting problem, but I kind of agree. So is this where we are with Leaf right now?
I'm still trying to figure out how big an omnivore is, because I mean, SHA-1 is 40 characters, SHA-256 would be 80. How big is an omnivore? I'm worried that DAG could get huge. I don't know. Trying
Well,
to figure that out.
the omnivore artifact ID is going to be relatively small. It's going to be 80 some odd characters. Like if it's SHA-2.
So it's a SHA-256 then. Okay.
Yeah. So it's not going to be overly big. Now they have a different identifier, which I think can get big. But again, we're not interested in that. We're just interested in the artifact identifier. But again, not all software is going to have artifacts. This is going to be applicable to services. So again, just one option that we can use for versions.
Okay. Let me.
Oh yes, I finally found the 256. There we go. You're right. It's a SHA-256. Okay, cool, good. I was just worried it was going to be huge.
Yeah.
And a PURL falls under random name, like under string.
PURL is. Do we need that here? I mean, there's something we use within the SBOMs.
It has to be supported in the API somewhere. Like if I have a Perl,
we definitely have a Perl in the discovery phase.
Yep.
But if that's the product, let's play around. Take a note and we'll see.
Yeah, TPE, Tweed. We need to think.
Yeah, that's the question mark. But maybe that's on the higher level.
This would cause collisions, right? Because you would have the same package rollout for multiple versions or multiple leaves.
We need to think about where we placed it.
I think it needs to be one level higher.
Yeah, I think it's in the product.
Yeah, possibly.
Okay, we'll keep it for now and see where we end up. Okay, we have a few minutes to go. I think that was a really, really good discussion. We cleared this up. Can I brag a little with my code? What I've done here is it opened a new window. Perfect Safari. I've done two small repositories. Here you can find a simple library to validate TURI syntaxes. And the interesting thing I did here is really, in order to test this, I wrote test scripts. So if you look into the Perl one, I took all the test Perls from the documentation and ran it through. And the Perl Python library didn't validate all of them, the Perls. So I filed a bug report and they're working on it. So I think I have a note here that for the Perl purls, I don't know how to separate that, with double colon here in the namespace. It really broke. So I'm running a lot of tests on different things here. And I also started adding DNS support in order to explain discovery. So take a look with that and play with it. Also, bored watching TV, I started playing around with the collection to see the data model, how it works, and other things. So I created a small library where you can create a collection and a very stupid command line client where I basically create a collection, I set the author, I set the product names, a fantastic Perl here. Create an artifact, and in the artifact I create a format like we discussed, and I build a structure. This resulted in still opening somewhere else. In this JSON, which I think is something we can look at and consider the data model as real data. So
Right.
feel free
Yeah,
to
no, this
play
is-
around.
this is
and
good.
comment.
Yeah, this is good. I saw this when you posted it earlier today. And I would love to be able to like look at this in the context of the
Oh, the flow.
sequence diagram. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
This is
That's
gonna
what
be
I
really
said.
useful.
I started in the back with the collection, but I also did the TI. So there are some ideas here. But I'll set up some time with Victor and we'll document some sequence diagrams until next meeting.
Yeah, no, I'm traveling a bit over the coming weeks, but I'll try to find some time with you for you all.
Yeah. I'm getting more and more busy because of the conference, but that's just
I can imagine.
life. Yeah, you all should be here. Well, that's just life.
I was very happy to find out something, Ali. Because I was sad I was missing your CRA talk, and it's like, darn, that'd be useful. And then I dove into CRAs because I figured I had to learn it and realized medical devices are exempt. Yes.
Yes,
Oh,
they are.
And that's where it stopped.
lucky you.
Oh, I no longer care.
But there is an interesting question I had with one of the car manufacturers that isn't owned by Swedish companies but operate in Sweden, because they believe they were exempt. But since they have mobile apps, I don't believe the mobile app is something that operates within the car. So the mobile app will be affected by the CRA. And they suddenly said, oops.
Yep.
Don't be looking for things to dash my hopes here. We use mobile apps in medical, and they're part of the medical system. That's it.
And they have remote data processing in the cloud, I guess. So.
Oh yeah. Also part of the medical system.
We're back on track, my love.
No. I'm not giving up this easy.
Okay. Anyway, that's me bragging, but I like having some code to really go from PowerPoints to see that there's some reality behind it.
Very good.
Okay, we're getting close to the hour. Do we have anything more for today?
Just a teeny thing. When sort of mentioning sort of omnivore, do you actually is there any sort of value in actually mentioning an example of its usage? Going back to what Steve said with, for instance, services, just so that people can actually understand quickly why is it actually included in the list of project version support.
I think maybe we can do a few examples, right? We can do like a traditional on-prem software example. We can do a services example, and we should probably do a hardware example too. And in the software example, I mean, the omnivore would be present, you know, and we can kind of explain why.
Yeah. I have here for the TIs, just as an example, started adding not examples, I probably should do that as well, but syntaxes saying that, well, and I see this is wrong, should be Perl there. But anyway, SWID supports hashes, UID, other ones, right? So we should probably, when we document Leaf, have examples with Omnivore and other ones and references, much like this.
Yep. Well, very good, Ollie. Ollie and Victor, good luck in your presentations in a little bit.
Thank you.
So looking
Thank
forward
you.
to seeing that.
Will there be recordings available?
I don't think they are
believe-
recording Spomorama. They are live streaming it, but I don't think they're recording it because I think that was
okay.
against one of their policies.
Uh,
But it's live.
Doesn't that violate CRA to record it? I think that's what.
I think it's that Cheltenham rule, whatever they abide by all their thing, which goes against recording meetings, whatever it was.
Yeah. It's like Alan said to me when we had our first meeting, saying, remember, you're talking with the US government. Don't share a screen with something you don't want to share with the US government. So have to be a bit
All right,
more
guys.
careful. Okay, then. Thank you very much for this meeting, and see you in 2 weeks.
Cheers.
See ya.
Good stuff.
Thanks
Bye.
all. Bye bye.